Jaya Radha.
I'm so glad you sang the Jaya Radha Madhava. Very nice. He's good, isn't he? He's good at everything. Singing, playing mridanga, book distribution, being a devotee. GBC next year. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there is no verse for us today. They asked me to give a class on the attractiveness of Krishna. I said, well, that's broad. the attractiveness of Krishna. Do you want anything more specific? They said, no, just the attractiveness of Krishna. I said, okay. It allows for a lot of scope. The attractiveness of Krishna is, of course, the very existential definition of Krishna, because Krishna is all attractive. That's the point. That's why Krishna has the name Krishna, because he's all attractive. As our benefactor says, everyone is looking for Krishna, but they don't know it. Everyone is looking for Krishna. So I was going to start with here's a meditation from the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can either close your eyes if you want to deny the reality of Krishna. Imagine him yourself, or you can gaze upon Gokulananda on the altar. We can say out loud with me, please. When Krishna walked on the bank of the Yamuna, he was seen nicely decorated with tilak on his head. He was garlanded with different kinds of forest flowers. And his body was smeared by the pulp of sandalwood and tulsi leaves. The bumblebees became mad after the treasure and sweet nectar of the atmosphere. Being pleased by the humming sound of the bees, Krishna would play his flute. And together the sounds became so sweet to hear that the aquatics, the cranes, swans and ducks, and other birds were charmed. Instead of swimming or flying, they became stunned. They closed their eyes and entered a trance of meditation in worship of Krishna. Hare Krishna. That was from chapter 35 of the Krishna book. So welcome, devotees, to this class the day before Janmastami, correct? This is the day when we prepare ourselves by either eating more or eating less for the fasting day tomorrow. What we should do a little bit is feast on descriptions of Krishna, so that tomorrow we can serve Krishna with full enthusiasm. When I first became a devotee, Krishna was not so well known. Now Krishna is all over the world. Krishna is attracting people all over the world. Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee of Krishna, has made Krishna even more attractive by glorifying him. So, one of the first things that Prabhupada tells us is that Krishna is Bhagavan. Bhagavan means, Bhaga means opulences, and Van means that he who possesses those opulences. What is an opulence? They're classified in the Vishnu Purana as 6 in number. You know what they are. Krishna has all of them. But the ordinary Bhagavans of the world have only one opulence at a time, usually. Or they have 2. But one is exultant and the other is not. Somebody may be beautiful, but they're not very rich. And the rich people aren't very beautiful sometimes. And sometimes you can be really, really rich, but not very famous. And sometimes you can be rich, beautiful, and famous, but stupid. Some people are very knowledgeable, but they're not very rich. Some people are knowledgeable, but they're pretty ugly, actually. Great scientists of the world are pretty ugly. You ever seen a beautiful scientist? Maybe. And none of them are renounced. We're not being broadcast today, are we? Is it not being broadcast?
It's live.
Oh, it's live, okay. All right. I was going to tell you a story about a famous scientist, but I won't. Anyway, I won't mention his name, but he was very, very, one of the most famous scientists and he's done a great deal of propaganda to make God an unfashionable idea. I'm not going to give his name. We don't do that sort of thing. But my friend of mine, devotee, his daughter went to this particular university. He said the scientist was chasing all the young girls, inviting them to come to his house for, should we say, nocturnal parties. Perhaps they were going to dance in the moonlight while he played his flute, I don't know. But they're scientists. Sometimes they're quite stupid or immoral or both. The opulences that ordinary people have are limited, meaning they only have them they're limited in the fact that they're wealthy, but they're not the most wealthy. And the opulences that they have are temporary. We see the very common thing is for a businessman, businesswoman to become very rich and then to lose it all. Someone to become very famous as a musician or an actor and lose it all. And of course it's temporary, because in this world, if you have Bhagavan or Bhagya, because of beauty, it will all be over in quite a few years. And oil of Ulay will not save you. Plastic surgery will not save you. Too much plastic surgery, your nose will disappear. Your lines may disappear, but so will your face. So in this way, those who have beauty, fame, wealth, strength, knowledge, and renunciation to the excellent level which is completely non-temporary, it never decays. If you find that person, you will find Bhagavan. You won't find him in any of the celebrity magazines, not in Hello magazine or Ola magazine or any of the celebrity red carpet interviews. You'll only find temporary Bhagavans. But the permanent Bhagavan is all attractive. Prabhupada said Bhagavan is attractive because he has what we don't have. He has what we're aspiring for. Someone who has everything that you would like for yourself, that person's very attractive to you. So hence we want to play golf with the bank manager, or we want to have our photograph taken with a famous person, isn't it? Facebook is full of it. Here I am standing next to such and such. Here I am standing next to a cardboard cutout of such and such. Here I am at Madame Tussauds, standing next to a member of the royal family. Well, good for you. It's aspirational to be next to someone who's got something that you don't. That's why all the ugly girls like to stand next to a pretty girl, isn't it? You find this tendency. So one who has everything is known as attractive. Even sometimes people are attracted to a bad person. But Prabhupada says, he says, no one is attracted to a bad person permanently. He may have some bhaga, because he may be dashing, courageous, bold, adventurous. Sometimes we glorify the big thieves, but no thief is very attractive in a Pentonville jail tracksuit top. No one is attractive. So when Lord Krishna was personally present on the earth, he exhibited all these opulences in full at all times. No one, as Prabhupada says in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 21, he says, no one was richer than Lord Krishna. No one was more learned than Krishna. No one was more beautiful than Krishna. No one was stronger than Krishna. No one was more famous than Krishna. And no one was more renounced than Krishna. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the Supreme Brahman. So Krishna took birth in Mathura 5,000 and something years ago. Tomorrow took his birth. We're celebrating his birth tomorrow, when the Supreme Swayam Bhagavan came into this world. He lived his life in Vrindavan. He went to Mathura, defeated the enemy of his parents, Kamsa, stayed there for some time, engaged in sports of various kinds, pastimes of various kinds. I moved to Dwarka, stayed there for many, many years, spoke the Bhagavad Gita at Kurukshetra, and before that met all his old friends at Kurukshetra for the eclipse, went back for the fight, spoke his last final conversation to Uddhava, and left this world. Krishna is the, Lord Nrsimhadev is the, you could say, is the shortest incarnation, shortest period. Lord Nrsimhadev comes and he goes. It's all over. Lord Krishna comes and he stays for the longest time. So Krishna has had an enduring effect on human history. Sometimes Prabhupada says, do not think that Krishna was simply a historical personality. In other places, Prabhupada says, he says, so Krishna, he was also a historical personality. In other words, he comes into history. And because he comes into history, he leaves an indelible mark in history. There's people who talk about Krishna, people who build buildings dedicated to Krishna. There are statues made in Krishna's image, paintings done in Krishna's form. In this way, Krishna has contributed the most well-known book on philosophy in the world. So Krishna was a philosopher. I used to think when I first met the devotees, well, they've taken a philosopher and they've upped him a little bit. They've just sort of, he's everything. He wrote this book, the Bhagavad Gita, and he put himself in it. He called himself God. And devotees don't know this, but I know this. I was very arrogant when I first arrived here at Bhaktivedanta Manor. And I wasn't attracted to Krishna. There was no attraction. Well, I was, but something dominated the attractiveness of Krishna. And that was my refusal to believe in the actual existential reality of Krishna. And they said, well, if you serve Krishna, you'll become attracted to him. And I said, well, that sounds like a catch-22. You have to believe in him first, and then you can realize him. Then you'll find him attractive. I said, that just seems like you're setting a precondition. If Krishna is all attractive, then surely I should be attracted to him now, and I'm not. What gives? One time I was invited to go and have a tea with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. And the invitation came through the post from the Lord Chancellor. It said, you are commanded by Her Majesty to arrive at such and such a place. And immediately I thought to myself, commanded? How dare she? Who do you think I am? I'm a Brahmin. I'm a Prabhupada disciple. How can you command me? They said, you will wear morning suit or national dress. I thought, well, no, I won't. You will arrive at the such and such a gate by such and such a time. It was all very commanding. So immediately my hackles were raised. No one tells me what to do. So in the same way, but eventually I decided to follow all the rules and regulations, and I got to see the Queen at her home on the lawn, had tea. Anyway, the point is, Prabhupada says, even in this world, you cannot get to see a very important person by following your rules. You get to see that important person by following their rules. You dress for them. You watch the clock for them. You arrive when they want you to, and the interview is finished when they want it to finish. When the interview is finished, you can't say, there's just a few more things I want to tell you about how wonderful I am. They go, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Das. The interview is over. So Krishna has his rules. Krishna has his rules. First serve me, and then you will become attracted to me. I've done my best by being the best of the best. If you're not attracted to me as Bhagavan, perhaps because it is 5,000 years later, and you're not actually sure whether I existed at all, I understand that. But serve me, and I will reveal myself to you. That's the way it works. So it took me a little while to come to that level. My friend told me, he said, even before I saw a picture of Krishna or knew anything about Krishna, I was attracted to the name Krishna. I just heard the name Krishna, 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 and the name stayed with me. He's still a devotee after 52 years. And he said, I was just attracted to the name. I didn't know what the name meant. I didn't know the personality behind the name. He said, when I heard the name Krishna, I thought, well, that's a nice name. That's a beautiful name. I wonder what that's all about. So Prabhupada says in 1973, in Sydney, he says, so we do not say that if you think that the Krishna name is the Hindu name or Indian name, why should I chant that? But if you've got any other name, actually must be the name of God, not a fiction or an idea. Just like I've explained, this Krishna Sanskrit word means all attractive. You say that God is great. Krishna means the greatest, all attractive. Unless you become very great, you cannot be attractive. According to our material calculation, if one is very rich, he's attractive. If one is very influential, he's attractive. If one is very wise, he's attractive. I'm just going over just so we embed this. If one is very beautiful, he's attractive. In this way, we attract. So God, Krishna, has got all the 6 opulences of attraction. Therefore, he is called Krishna. Krishna means one who has all those opulences. And in the 6th canto, Prabhupada says, actually the Lord's name already exists. The name Krishna already exists because of his activities. The Lord is sometimes called Guna Karma Nam because he's named according to his activities. For example, Krishna means all attractive. This is the Lord's name because his qualities make him very attractive. As a small boy, he lifted, and in his childhood he killed, many demons. Such activities are very attractive. Are you attracted by the story of Krishna killing Putana? I am. I kind of like it. It's kind of funny. I like it when the bad guys get what's coming to them. And she came to him and she offered Krishna her breast milk, knowing full well that it would poison a baby. Even now, just last week, we had the trial of a lady nurse who killed 7 babies. Unimaginable. Unimaginable. Not just one, but killed 7 babies, planned to kill them, executed it, and tried to kill another 6. You know, you can't believe that such evil exists. And I'll, be very happy that Krishna dealt with such a person. So Krishna took all the worst demons and he killed them in a way that was completely appropriate to them. So Krishna gets names according to this: Putana, Putana Gatana, Kankshana Shudana, Swayam Bhagavan Keshava. Talking about your name. You enter the room. It means you live a long time. So Krishna, because he acted as the son of Nanda Maharaj, he is called Nanda, what? Nanda Nandana, Nanda Suno, Nanda. Nanda Kishore, Nanda. What's the name Prabhupada says here? Nanda Tanuja. Nanda Tanuja. These names already exist. But since non-devotees cannot understand the names of the Lord, he is sometimes called Anam, or nameless. But this means that he has no material names. All his activities are spiritual, and therefore he has spiritual names. So the fact that my friend was so attracted to the name Krishna means that Krishna is fully present in his name. if, as Prabhupada says, we call Mr. John, Mr. John, Mr. John, Mr. John. Mr. John is not present in his name. But Krishna, because he's absolute, he's present in his name. So my friend was interested in the name Krishna, attracted by the name Krishna, even without seeing a picture of Krishna or knowing anything about Krishna, just the name Krishna. Rupa Goswami says that when he chants the name Krishna, I wish I had thousands of tongues. And then when I'm chanting, I wished I had thousands of ears, millions of ears, thousands of millions. I'll settle for either. Thousands, millions of ears. Yeah, when I was a boy, I used to sing this hymn written by Charles Wesley, over 1,000 tongues to sing the name of the Lord, over 1,000 tongues. Okay. Oh yes, when I was a boy, I went bell ringing. Bell ringing in our village. We worshipped at the Methodist chapel, but there was a church in the village, and I was one of the bell ringers, ringing the bell. The church was called the Church of the Holy Name. Dong. So Rupa Goswami says, so there is this thing which has to be somehow overcome, that we have belief before we have attraction. I went on traveling Sankirtan, book distribution, and they told me this, and I was absolutely convinced that the devotees, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, he said, do not think this, but I was thinking it. The devotees have taken all the attractive things in the world, like a lotus and the music of the flute and the bumblebees and flowers, and somehow they'd made a composite picture, sort of like artificial intelligence does. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, take me all the beautiful things in the world and come up with an image that answers to that description. So, your artificial intelligence search engine looks all over the world and finds the most beautiful eyes, most beautiful nose, most beautiful lips, most beautiful face and hair, ornaments, most beautiful musical instrument, puts them all together in one person, hey presto, that must be what God looks like because it's the most beautiful, right? That's called anthropomorphism. It means that God must be like me, therefore I'm projecting an image of myself or the most beautiful things that I can conceive of onto God. So even as I was distributing books about Krishna, I was thinking that this was what the devotees had done. My realization was stopping short. Then I came home after book distribution and I saw a devotee at deity greeting, and tears were running down his face. And he was an old man. He was 24. I was only 17, so I thought, there's something going on here. And I'd previously spoken to him, and he sounded as if he was all there. But why is he getting so emotional over a stone statue? Even though the stone statue is decorated with some flowers, and a turban, which is obviously Indian. So it means that Krishna is only Krishna for Indian people. So it's not a British god. Obviously, he'd have a bowler hat and a pinstripe suit. And then another devotee turned around and he was crying also. And then a third devotee was crying. There was a lot of crying in those days, folks. And so I looked and I thought, what the hell is going on? And I thought, either this is all weird and Krishna's doesn't really exist, but they've hyped themselves up. It's just like, Kishore, one of our devotees, was one Janmastami in 1975. Janmastami 1975, I remember. It was the first time the local newspaper, the Watford Observer, came to take some photographs. And it was all taking place in here and on the lawn. So Kishore was in that corner and he was leading a kirtan. And the camera just happened to catch him when he was like this. And the caption that they put to the photograph was, Hare Krishna devotee working himself up into a state of ecstasy. In other words, it's something that we do. The ecstasy that we feel that when we see Krishna or hear his holy name is something we have worked ourselves up to, which means it's a psychological inducement. Not something that comes to us by an act of grace of the Lord, but it's something that we work ourselves up to. So I looked at that and I was still thinking, this is, it's okay. I like the food, I like the haircut even. I like the devotees, well, some of them are mad, but some of the others are nice. Some of them are really intelligent, some of them are stupid. I'll stay here for another week at the manor. But it didn't click. So they said, you have to serve Krishna. So I said, okay, what do I do? I said, well, you have to keep on distributing books because Krishna will give you his mercy. Or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna, will give you his mercy. And then you'll understand. So I carried on doing that. And every day I picked a wild flower and I placed it on a picture of Krishna, which was on the dashboard, which to me was, Bhaktivedanta Manor was no longer the temple. The temple was a Ford Transit. The dashboard was the altar. So we'd see a nice flower during japa and came. And lo and behold, after a few months, we were driving along the A15 from Lincoln up to Scunthorpe. Great place. Actually, Lincolnshire is a great place for meditation because the roads just go on forever and the landscape is flat. And you enter into a timeless twilight zone where Krishna becomes manifest. It all happens on the A15. So the devotee said to me, he said, look, you've got to try to understand. He said, one day, you'll be able to talk to Krishna face to face like I'm talking to you now. Just think about it. And I looked out the windscreen. I was thinking and thinking and thinking. I looked back at him and he said, do you get it? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, has the penny dropped? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, it's nice when that happens, isn't it? And that was the turning point. It was the turning point. So my, conviction is that if you go onto the A15 and you drive north, the absolute truth will be revealed to you. So Krishna reveals himself through nama, guna, rupa, lila, and Krishna, Prabhupada one time he said Krishna reveals himself progressively. Nama, rupa, guna, lila. First, the name of Krishna will be more to you than it ever has before. The name of Krishna will give you joy. And the form of Krishna will give you joy, and you'll see the form of Krishna. He said, one day you'll be out on book distribution, and you will hear his nupur, his ankle bells, and then you will turn. You'll turn. He said, and there you'll see Krishna. Then you'll know his character, his guna, and his lila, as supremely attractive pastimes. One of the first verses that everybody is aware of when they come to a Hare Krishna temple is Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Parahavatasam Asitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarabhagoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. Final line, Govindam Adipurujam. Yeah. Nobody knew what the words meant, actually. We never had a translation of these verses for a long time. We knew that Mukunda had sung them, but we didn't know what they meant. And for a few days I was thinking, well, Krishna is blue. They told me that he's blue. So I was listening, and Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu was, and the clouds in my eyes are blue. Oh, Krishna. That's what I thought it was. That's what I thought that it was. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is describing the beauty of Krishna, first of all he describes Lord Narayan. Then he describes that Krishna is superior to Narayan. Lord Narayan is known to every Hindu, every follower of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Goswami knew Narayan, but Krishna, Chaitanya was placing upon him this extra understanding that Krishna has 4 unique aspects that even Narayan does not possess. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to Sanatana, he was becoming excited. He was telling him all about his beauty. And at one point he clasped his hands and he was telling him about Krishna. He's Madan Mohan. He conquers all cupids. I won't read all the verses. The pearls of the necklace hanging on Krishna's neck are white as ducks, and the peacock feather decorating his head is colored like a rainbow. His yellow garment is like lightning in the sky, and Krishna himself is like a newly arrived cloud. The gopis are like food grains in the field, and when the cloud pours rain on those grains, it appears that Krishna is nourishing the hearts of the gopis by calling down his pastime rain of mercy. Indeed, ducks fly in the sky during the rainy season, and rainbows can also be seen at that time. Krishna freely moves among his friends as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, and when he plays his flute, all living creatures are overwhelmed with ecstasy. The one thing devotee said to me, he was trying to convince me of the reality of Krishna. He said, and his eyes were moving like this. He said, Krishna, moves in waves of beauty. I like that expression. Krishna moves in waves of beauty. So anything Krishna does, whatever gesture he adopts, whatever movement he makes, is a fresh aspect of his beauty. With us, we can pose and we may look attractive, and then a second afterwards we look unattractive. But Krishna never looks unattractive. He will hold one gesture and then he'll move to another gesture, so that everything is a wave of beauty. When devotees describe the beauty of the Lord, they usually start from his feet, his lotus feet, his toes, the radiance of his toes, and they work up to his legs and his navel, chest, lips. Rupa Goswami has described what he calls as udipan. And udipan is a stimulant to ecstatic rati, not only attraction to Krishna, but attachment to Krishna. In other words, that one is fully absorbed in this beauty so much that he seeks to possess it and can never let it go. And he mentions the following objects that when we see them, and Prabhupada was trying to explain this, he said, just like when a mother, she sees the shoes of her baby, immediately she thinks of her baby and she becomes overwhelmed with love. So it is just a shoe, just a little booty. When you see, all the mothers immediately know what I'm saying. You just see the tiny little shoe of your baby and immediately you think of the whole baby, isn't it? So you become overwhelmed with love. This is the booty, the little shoe made of wool, is a stimulant to a mother's love. So in the same way, when we see something which is attached to Krishna, we become stimulated to rati. Krishna's smile, Krishna's fragrance, Krishna's buffalo horn, Krishna's footbells, Krishna's conch shell. And right there in the Nectar of Devotion, it is described how a yogi was sitting in a cave. A yogi was sitting in a cave. And the battle of Kurukshetra was taking place some distance away. But he heard Krishna's conch shell being blown. And immediately he came out of his trance. What can break the trance of meditating on Paramatma? The conch of Krishna. Because it's a stimulus to ecstatic love. And love means service. Krishna's footprints. Who was stimulated by Krishna's footprints? Akrura, that's right. I mean, there's a whole chapter on Akrura's prayers to Krishna, just by seeing a footprint of Krishna. Krishna has many different dresses and ornaments. We can look at how Krishna's nicely dressed. There is the yuga. The yuga. Krishna's dress is 2 pieces. There's a red top and yellow dhoti. The chatushka, 4 pieces. The turban, the bodice, the waist belt, and the dhoti. Krishna's hair can be a stimulus to us. We just see Krishna's hair. Krishna is fully present in his hair. He's known as Keshava, one who has fine hair. Krishna has 4 different hairstyles, ladies. 4 different hairstyles. His first hairstyle is a bun behind the neck. Second one, Krishna's hair is braided with flowers. Third one, Krishna's hair is tied on top. And the fourth one, Krishna's braided, reaching down his back. So these are all the different styles of hair that Krishna has, and you'll see those on different deities. Krishna's always decorated with a flower garland, different types of flower garlands. There's the Vajanti Mala, which is 5 types of flowers, and the garland comes down to Krishna's knees. There's the Ratna Mala, a garland made of jewels. There is the Vanamala, made of leaves and flowers, and that reaches down to his feet. Sometimes Prabhupada says the Vanamala is made from forest flowers. They don't go to the flower market. They don't go to the flower shop. They go picking flowers in the Vrindavan woods. Krishna has many different ornaments. He has crowns. He has earrings, necklaces, strands of medallions. He has bangles, rings, armlets, and anklets. But these beautiful ornaments, or bhushanam, do they decorate Krishna? Krishna decorates them. Therefore, another name for Krishna is Bhushanera Bhushanam. Krishna is the ornament of his ornaments. Is the ornament of his... Since even the ornaments of Krishna, they're stimulants to ecstatic love, that is true. And if you see them, you'll become stimulated. But Krishna himself is the ultimate ornament, because he's the most beautiful. Krishna's flute and the music of his flute is all attractive. Again, when I first became a devotee, I said, why flute? I like the saxophone. But when we scientifically analyze the music that comes from the flute, it is the purest sound wave. Purest sound wave is the flute, sound of the flute, and very attractive. If you hear the flute coming from a forest, you would also be attracted. Prabhupada was taking the devotees on a walk around the lake of Bhaktivedanta Manna, and the devotee who painted this beautiful painting of Prabhupada here, Gopal, he could also play the flute. So he was sitting in a tree on the other side of the lake playing the flute, and the devotees were just, Prabhupada was talking to them about Krishna, and they heard the flute playing. Clever chap, Gopal. Anyway, he was playing the flute, and immediately Prabhupada was saying yes. And he started talking all about the spiritual world, where the flute, the sound of the flute is all pervading. Krishna has different flutes. There's the Venu, which is 9 inches long and has 6 holes. The Murli, 36 inches long, long flute, 4 holes, this is known as particularly enchanting. The Vamsi, which is 12 3/4 inches long, has 9 holes. But the 3 categories of Vamsi. There's the Samohini, 19 inches long, made of jewels. The Akarshani, 20 inches, made of gold. The Anandini, 22 inches. This is very special, made of bamboo. Is the flute made of bamboo better than the flute made of gold? In one sense, no, it's all equal, but the flute made of bamboo, that is most dear to the gopas. That's the flute Krishna plays most often. But I would issue a warning to you, my dear Vaishnavas. Be very, very careful. Don't look at Krishna. Just don't look at Krishna. My dear friend, if you still have any desire to enjoy the company of your friends within this material world, then don't look upon the form of Krishna, who is standing on the bank of Keshi Ghat. Jamuna kinare Krishna kanaya murali madhura bhajabe. Isn't that a popular Hindu song? Krishna standing on the banks of the... You know that one, Maharaj? Jamuna kinare Krishna kanaya murali madhura bhajave. Don't go anywhere near that song. Don't even think of Krishna, you'll be finished. He is known as Govinda. His eyes are very enchanting. He is playing on his flute, and on his head there is a peacock feather. This thing of Krishna wearing a peacock feather, of course Krishna wears a peacock feather. But so does Nanda Maharaj, so does Mother Yashoda, so does different cowherd boys. In fact, peacock feathers were everywhere, and everybody picked them up. But particularly Krishna. Krishna's peacock feather is special because it's Krishna. His whole body is illuminated by the moonlight in the sky. That's why this particular form of Krishna is the form of Krishna that we worship in temples all over the world. But if you go to Braj, whatever particular pastime Krishna performed in a particular place of the Braj Mandala, the deity of the local temple will depict that pastime. So although Krishna's Tribangananda form, like this, is the standard, highest form of meditation, when you go to Lohaban, Krishna marries Radharani in a ceremony conducted by Lord Brahma. So Krishna is like this, and he's putting kumkum in Radharani's hair, like this. In another place, Krishna is lifting up Govardhan Hill. In another place, Krishna is performing another pastime. So Krishna is depicted in different ways. Krishna as a baby is mischievous. Krishna's childhood baby pastime. Everybody loves babies. Come on, even the brahmacharis. Even the brahmacharis have to pull themselves away from a baby. Even the sannyasis, we've seen it. Sannyasis do not look upon the face of a baby, you will become enchanted. So babies are enchanting. Why are babies enchanting? Psychologically, babies are enchanting because they need to be looked after. Therefore, the proportions of their face are that the eyes are much bigger than everything else. And there is an inbuilt mechanism rooted in your DNA that says, if the eyes are bigger than the face, if the eyes are in proportion to the face are bigger, pick it up and cuddle it. That's why. It's just rooted. It's the human species. The brain works in a particular way. And the brain for women have to do this. Women have to do it. I've just read a book, The Differences Between a Man's Brain and a Woman's Brain. Sorry, but there is a difference. There is a difference. Women's brains are predisposed to baby, picking them up and looking after them also. Nothing wrong in that, because the human species cannot continue unless, or any species cannot continue unless babies are worth picking up. You see. So all people do this. However, so Krishna, but babies, they grow into teenagers, and you don't want to pick them up. Especially when they slam the door in your face and they say, I hate you. I've always hated you. You've never done anything good for me. That's a teenager. And immediately, the householder feels, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Maybe I was too much of a devotee. Maybe I wasn't enough of a devotee. It's all gone wrong. So it's not like it says in the books. Okay? It's called because the bhaga, or the bhagya, of the attractiveness of babyhood is temporary. The attractiveness had to be there in order for you to look after baby, because it's so painful looking after children. Can you imagine? Years and years of wiping bottoms. Can you imagine? No human being, no intelligent human being would subject themselves to that unless there was a face that said, That's why when we're scrolling on Facebook and there's a kitten, he goes, oh, or a puppy, oh. See? So Krishna's babyhood part, but don't think, Prabhupada says, don't think Krishna's babyhood pastimes are superior to him being the charioteer of Arjuna. There are some Vaishnava groups who teach this, that somehow or another, Krishna, when he was a baby, that's his supreme form. And that when he's standing on the bank of the Yamuna playing his flute, somehow or another this is Krishna contaminated by lust. No, we don't teach that. Even some Vaishnava groups are thinking like that. We don't say that, of course. We say this form of Krishna, Braj Krishna, Vrindavan Krishna, playing the flute. This is the highest object of meditation. This was the first teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. But not only that, Krishna's a baby, but Krishna's doing the same thing as a baby as he did when he was older. It's not that because Krishna was a baby, he is, unable to kill Putana, unable to kill Trinavarta, unable to kill Agha. He was Swayam Bhagavan even as a cute little baby. So don't allow this attraction that you have to Krishna as a baby, think that he's somehow worthy of more cuddles or more attraction. No. So Krishna is always Krishna. But he manifests himself in different ways, different pastimes. Each of his pastimes is attractive. One pastime that's been attracting me is Krishna's last conversation with Uddhava, which we find in the 11th canto. Krishna is so affectionate to Uddhava. And Uddhava is so devastated by the fact that Krishna will soon be going away. Terrible. Krishna's relationships with all of his devotees are eternal. His acts of miracles are constantly going on. Even now the Govardhan hill is being lifted in a different part of the cosmos. Krishna has universal appeal. Krishna is depicted in architecture and art, in music and dance and drama, movies, cartoons, stories, epics, stage plays. Even now as we speak, people are trying to raise the funding for an opera on Krishna. His Grace Rancho Prabhu was consulted by the writer of this opera who wrote it. He did the music for Lady Diana's funeral. His name is John Tavener. So the last opera that he wrote is just called Krishna. Never been performed. It will take a lot of money, so they're trying to raise the money for 2025. This is Krishna. And it will be big. Krishna will be famous, as he should be. So Krishna's influence is not only universal, but containing. So how to attain Krishna? Well, the secret is in the Brahma Samhita. I will finish now. I will rest my case. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yama shama sundaram achintya guna sarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So this prema anjana, this ointment, of prema is given by the Guru. And the Guru keeps your eyes open long enough to make the ointment, to allow the ointment to work. Therefore, Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya. Shalakaya is the stick, little matchstick that props up your eyelid. The Ayurvedic physician takes a little stick and he first props up your eyelid so that you won't blink. So this Anjana you put in the eye. But if the eye blinks, then the Anjana will be wiped away and it will fall down your cheek. So first of all you have to have your eyelid propped up with a shalaka, a stick. And then the Guru puts the Jnana Anjana and waits as long as it takes for the Jnana Anjana to work. So this Jnana Anjana is the Prema Anjana, but the Prema Anjana comes after the Jnana Anjana in the sense that it's the upper reaches of the workings of the medicine, and it comes through grace. But that grace is expressed through the company of devotees. So if you want to be attracted to Krishna, serve Krishna, but serve Krishna in the company of those devotees who are attracted to Krishna. And you will see Krishna through their eyes that have been tinged with the salve of love. Let me just read, because Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj is with us, and I want to think Gita. Little plug there. I'm thinking. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, and we're in the 11th chapter now, and this is very important. This part I found is very important. Krishna, while speaking to Arjuna, displayed his real four-armed form. This is universal form, four-armed form. And at last he showed him his two-armed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna. Okay? So that just proves that God is Narayan, four-armed form, that's really God. And then when he comes down to the two-armed form, that's Narayan incarnating as Krishna, right? Swayam Bhagavan Maharaj. That's what it says. But no, it doesn't. Let's hear. When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, "Seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, my mind is now pacified, and I'm restored to my original nature." Well, of course, that just means that Arjuna knew Krishna in that form. Doesn't mean that that's the God form. But then the Blessed Lord said, old translation, "My dear Arjuna, the form which you are now seeing is very difficult to behold." Very difficult to behold. In other words, the two forms that you saw, they're relatively easy to... I mean, for God's sake, even Dhritarashtra saw the universal form, the Virat Rupa, and he was blind and a non-devotee. He saw that form. But this form of Krishna is very difficult. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form, which is so dear. Am I right, Maharaj? We're getting closer. The form which you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penance, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Okay? How can we see Krishna as he is? My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. My dear Arjuna, one who is engaged in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of previous activities and from mental speculation. Mental speculation. You may be free from your previous karmas. I'm initiated now, that's it, with the banana. I put the banana in the fire, that's it. All my karma from millions of lifetimes is burned away. Oh dear, but I still have mental speculation. One who is friendly to every living entity. Are you? Are you friendly to everyone? Have you stopped mentally speculating? He certainly comes to me. Good. And finally, I want to finish with a meditation for you. Krishna is known as Madan Mohan because he conquers the mind of Cupid. He is also known as Madan Mohan due to his accepting the devotional service of the damsels of Braja and rendering favors unto them. After conquering Cupid's pride, the Lord engages in the rasa dance as the new Cupid. He is also known as Madan Mohan because of his ability to conquer the minds of women with his 5 arrows. What are Krishna's 5 arrows by which he will be conquered? Called form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. The pearls of the necklace which hangs around the neck of Krishna are as white as ducks, and the peacock feather which decorates his head is colored like a rainbow. His yellow garment is like lightning in the sky, and Krishna is like the newly arrived clouds. The gopis are like footbells on his feet, and when the cloud pours rain on the grains in the field, it appears that Krishna is nourishing the hearts of the gopis by calling down his pastime rain of mercy. His perfect beauty is his conjugal attraction. The form of Krishna, the conjugal beauty, is eternally existent in Krishna alone, whereas his other opulences are present in his Narayan form. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 10. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Krishna Janmastami ki jai. Some comment? Maharaj. Maharani. Maharaj, something. You got the mic.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to share something. You were mentioning Rupa Goswami's verse where he talks about Govinda on the banks of the Yamuna. Once I was in Paris, I was doing Sankirtan, and one boy, he saw the Bhagavad Gita in my hand and he saw Krishna. So he came up and he said, "Who's that? Who's that?" I said, "That's Krishna." So he was from a Muslim background. His name was, I think his name was Abdullah. And he said, 3 years ago I went to India and I visited one temple. I only have ever visited one temple in my whole life. And ever since that time, I can't forget Krishna. I'm intrigued. So I said, "Which temple?" He said, "Nah, you probably wouldn't know which one it is." I said, "Try me." He said, "It was in a place called Jaipur." And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "Which temple did you go to?" He said, "It was the temple of Govinda." And he said, "It's the only temple he's ever been to." And he said, "The devotion I saw and the way Krishna was dressed and the worship," he said, "Ever since that time I can't forget Krishna." Interesting.
Yeah. That was the story of the Muslim princess, wasn't it? You know the story? In Sri Rangam. Of course it's Lord Narayan, but anyway, they brought the Utsav Murti of the Lord to Delhi, and it was in the treasure house. And the young princess, she became so attracted by the form of the Lord that she adopted him played with him as a doll. And when Ramanujacharya heard about this, he came all the way to Delhi, walked all the way to Delhi from Sri Rangam, and said, "Can we please have the Lord back? He belongs in Sri Rangam temple." And the Sultan said, "Well, sir, I know you are a saint, but in reality, we do not accept that God can come in a form. We do not accept this. But if you can make your God come, then we will accept." So Ramanuja called and the deity left where he was and came. He said, "Well, he said, "Good." He said, "I know, I accept that you have great powers. So you can take the deity back." But then the princess came into the room and she was crying. She said, "That's my favorite doll." He said, "All right, well, you can go to Sri Rangam." It's a princess and many, many soldiers and horses and an elephant all went to Sri Rangam. And she stayed there in Sri Rangam. And she died. and they made a form of her, a deity of her, and they put her on the altar next to Govinda. And then the brother came and he said, "Where's my sister?" So she passed away. He said, "Well, what happened?" They told him the story. And then they took him to the temple, and he saw Govinda, and next was the princess, the form of the princess. He said, "You've taken a Muslim princess and you've made her into a Hindu god." He said, "Anyway, you're serving her with love," and I like that. Yeah, a person told me he was from a Jewish background, which of course there's no images in a Jewish background. He was raised on a kibbutz, which means a communal farm in the Galilee area in Israel. And he just came, as many Israelis do, on a trip to India. And as they do, the tourist bus came to Vrindavan, and they came to the Ingrezi Mandir, where there's always a kirtan going on. There's always lots of energy, and it's just off the main highway. And so he happened to be there in the morning, and the curtains opened, the Govindam prayers played, and he saw the form of Krishna, and he was just crying. He just cried. At his mind, he told me afterwards, he said, my mind is thinking, he said, "Why am I crying? I'm a Jew. Why am I crying? I'm a Jew. Why am I crying? We don't believe in all this. We don't believe in all this." He said, why am I crying? This doesn't make sense. Anyway, he couldn't forget that episode. And he became a devotee after that. Yeah. So don't go to see Krishna. Finished if you do. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the beautiful class. I was wondering about when you said that the name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna, while if we say Mr. John, it's different. I have been thinking about this concept since quite some time, and according to scientific research, they say that, they made an experiment by putting something on the head, and if they think about an apple, there are certain lights that will light up in the brain. And if you take away the apple and they say visualize the apple, they will get exactly the same lights in the brain lightening up, which means that the brain doesn't really distinguish so much from reality or not. So if we are thinking, I don't know, Mr. John or whoever it is, and it relates with an image in our head, actually the brain activates in a certain way where it is there, even if we are just saying a name, but it's not there because we are thinking about it. Actually, it has exactly the same effect as if it's reality. So even if we are thinking water, 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 according to this, theory, we could visualize the water and enter into contact with that and actually be nourished by water, because the brain wouldn't make that distinction. And in the same way, if we say the name of someone which has an emotional connection for us, actually it is the same as the person. If I say the name of my father, and for me there is a relationship with that, then if I say that name, he is actually present. So I was wondering if you could explain that.
Well, there's another psychological experiment where they place, they place they give you a photograph of one of your children. They say, we're trying this experiment, bring a photograph of one of your children, one of your babies. And then they give you a dart. You know darts? Darts. And now we want you to throw a dart at the photograph of your baby. And the mothers can't do it because the emotional connection with the representation is there. So that's one thing, to have the emotions. But even where there's no emotions, even where there's no predisposition towards the sound of the name Krishna. I was thinking this morning that I have a shed in my garden, and sometimes I read in that shed, and the light is on at night. And if I leave the window open or the door open, immediately the moths will come in. Now the moths are predisposed to be attracted to the sun. So even when it's the night time, they fly towards the light. And moths get killed because we don't use them so often. But in the old days, moths would fly towards a candle. They just fly in circles towards a candle. Because they think that the candle is the sun. Now in normal circumstances, moths orientate themselves towards the sun. They use the sun. But mistaking the candle to be the sun, they spin around and they get burned. So the moth thinks that the candle is the sun. In the same way, everyone is orientating themselves towards that which is beautiful, the supreme beauty, the supreme sun of Krishna. And in that condition of wanting Krishna but not being able to have Krishna because of my disqualification, I will be attracted to the Krishna substitutes. So the Krishna substitute will be something that promises leaf blower. Yes, the great curse of Kali Yuga, the leaf blower. So we will accept any substitute. You see, because there's a Krishna-shaped hole. The hole that we have in our hearts is shaped like Krishna. But we try to put into that hole different things. Therefore, the very first thing that when a person is trying to re-educate their brain, for instance, they've become addicted to a particular substance, the first thing that you do on the world's most successful drug denial program is to accept that there is a higher power and to turn your substance abuse over to that higher power. So there's a God-shaped hole. The difficult thing in Kali Yuga is that there's all sorts of new substitutes for God. All sorts of new substitutes. You know, the message of this movement is that everyone is looking for Krishna, and we are the movement to give Krishna to others. It's very simple. If you simply present Krishna as he is, and Krishna's Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the teachings as it is, then innately that intrinsic attraction people have for Krishna is there. And the name of Krishna, of course, is Krishna because everything is Krishna. It's all Krishna. In one sense, it's all Krishna. Or the energies of Krishna. But it's all connected to Krishna. All right. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Happy Janmastami tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.